Hello friends, my name is Heidi Sonboul and welcome to my DIY channel. I'm so grateful you clicked on this video today and I hope that it will inspire you. In this video I am sharing 35 farmhouse spring Dollar Tree DIYs. Now I love Dollar Tree supplies because you can make them look so high end on a crafter's budget. Alright, now let's get crafting. For this project, we are going to take this simple wooden framed box and we're going to start by popping off the back of the twine, the sticker, all that good stuff on the back. And then we're going to take a dark brown and paint the frame and a little bit of the inside of this box. Don't forget the back as well because I love a good finished back on all my projects. Now we're going to pick out some pattern paper. This part is the fun part because you get to pick the papers that you want. I measure the inside of my box with a clear ruler because it lets me be able to see the dimensions a little bit better with a clear ruler. And then I'm going to just cut down my paper to size and glue that right inside the box. As I am putting the glue in, I'm trying to make sure I'm not leaving any of that stringy residue left behind from the hot glue because it does make it a little bit difficult later on trying to get out once you glue the paper in. And then I'm going to just push that right down inside. Now I went over to my computer and printed out the word Our Nest using my Word program on my computer. And then once I cut that down, I decided to come in with another pattern paper. I love mixing scrapbook pattern paper so much. I feel like it brings so much personality to such a simple project like a wooden framed box. Now I'm going to layer those and glue those all together, cut them down to size, and then pop that right inside. Now we can stop there and this is really cute and beautiful, but because it says the word nest, I thought it would be so adorable to bring in a tiny little bird's nest. Now we're going to take some of this nautical rope. It has 3 twisted together on one rope strand. So I went ahead and just untwisted them so I only had one of those ropes. I tied a simple knot and now I'm just going to add some glue and start coiling around until I get to a size of a little bird's nest that I think would be cute for the corner of this frame. Once you've got it wrapped around enough, start to bring it towards the back side, wrap it around so it has a nice finished look. I feel like these are the moments where projects start to kind of look like a Pinterest fail if you're not careful with how the finishings are. So I'd like to bring it around the back, glue it into place. Then I added in some Spanish moss. And now I'm going to create some little tiny mini eggs with some air dry clay. These little eggs are going to really finish the look of this project. Once the eggs are dry, go ahead and take a paintbrush and just sprinkle on some of those little specks. And once they're dry, you can go ahead and glue your little egg into place. And I wanted to come in to give it that farmhouse look a little bit more. So I'm just dry brushing on some white paint and then to fill in that corner because I felt like it was still a little too not finished at the bottom of this project. I added in a little bit more of that Spanish moss. I'm going to be taking this fall sign, but we're going to be using the back side as well as these bunnies. And we are going to start with taking our sign and tracing some fabric to size for the back side of our sign because we want to cover that up so it has a nice finished look. Once you've got it all nice and smoothed out and in place, I'm going to take some of my scrapbook paper that I have on hand. I love this floral print and this gingham blue print together. I just feel like it screams spring. I love them so much. So I'm going to add some adhesive to my sign, and they don't have to be perfectly cut because we're going to do some distressing in just a minute. And you're going to see I put some of the floral pattern on one side, on the other side, and then right in the center I'm bringing in that gingham. Now this is where the distressing is going to come in. I love a roughed edge on my paper. So I'm going to just take my scissors and just keep rubbing back and forth. It's okay if it rips just a little bit. You don't want huge giant rips in it, but enough that it gives that distressed look. It kind of has a ruffled look to it when you get all the way around the 4 sides. And then I'm going to go ahead and add on some of this lace. And now we're going to move on to the bunnies. The bunnies always have these little holes in it when you buy these garland kits. So I like to just fill in those holes with some wood putty. I like to put my finger on the back side of the hole and then put in the putty so it doesn't keep squishing through. You'll notice that that can be kind of frustrating when you're trying to fill the hole. Once it's dry, go ahead and sand it down. Give your bunnies a couple coats of paint, depending on how white you want them to be, and then distress them. And at this point, once they're all dry, you can go ahead and start gluing them on. Now I'm going to do 5 bunnies. The best way to center them is putting the bunny in the middle first, and then keep working your way out to the sides. Now, it would not be complete without little bunny tails, so I added on some cotton balls, and I also added on some twine bows every other bunny. Our supplies for this project are going to be a 20-inch wreath form, 8 to 9 ropes, depending on how long your ropes are, from the Dollar Tree, and then one of these 3D wreath forms. We're taking the second ring from the outer form. We are going to take that ring and right at the joint, bend it where it pops right in half, and then go across to the other side and cut right there. Now you're going to notice there are little circles on the middle of these arches now. That's where the 3D wreath form all comes together with one little metal rod. We're going to bend it right at that point to create the bunny ears. Start by bending the first one towards you and then the second one away from you. And you can see that I've already pinched it into place of the bunny ears. So one is going to come towards you and one's going to come away from you. That's going to allow you to be able to lock those two into place so it stays in that shape of a bunny ear. Now we're going to come in through the first and second ring, right where you see that connecting joint, and we're going to hook those ears back together. Now using 3 zip ties, you're going to zip it right in the middle, and then you're going to come onto the side of the ear and the first ring, zip tie that one, and then go over to the other side of the ear, zip tying the other side to that first ring. This is going to strengthen the ears really, really strong, and it's not going to go anywhere for your bunny ears. Once you've got those all zip tied in, go ahead and take your scissors and just simply cut off those long zip ties. You don't want those in the way, they're just kind of messy. And then after you've got all of that nice and secure, you're now going to move on to your rope. Take your rope, hot glue the rope on, and we're going to start at the ear. So you're going to just keep twisting around your wire and your ear as tightly as you can. You want this to be nice and snug. And I kept adding some glue about every 3 or 4 times I wrapped it around, because we don't want to see the wire and we want to keep the rope being consistent in its tightness. So when you get to the top of the ear, you're going to add some glue and then come back down the other side. Once you've gotten down the other side of the bunny ear, come down onto that 20-inch wreath form and then just keep wrapping around. You're going to notice, because the wreath is round, that the rope sometimes wants to be looser on the outer part of the wreath form. So just make sure you double back into those spots where it might need a little bit of extra rope, and then just keep going forward after that. Use hot glue as needed to secure the rope in its place that you want it. Make your way all the way around the wreath until you get to your finishing point and cut off the rope. Again, I used about 8 or 9 rope packages from the Dollar Tree to complete the full way around the bunny. Now at this point, we're going to go on to the ears. I am taking some hot glue. I went around with a nice straight line on the back of the ear. I'm smoothing on some white burlap. And then once it's all patted down, massaged into the glue, I'm going to come in with my scissors and cut right along the line where that hot glue is, so it's a nice clean look. I think it looks so adorable having the white burlap be inside the bunny's ears. I decided to add a couple of fern leaves onto my bunny's ears. I thought this would be so pretty and add a little bit of that spring touch. And now I'm going to start adding on my bows. You can add on whatever kind of bow you want to add on. I'm going to be going with a sage green and a peach look to this bunny wreath. The first one was a double loop bow, and now I'm going to show you how to make a really simple traditional bow that looks really full. So you can see here I've got about 12-13 inches length in a ribbon. I glued it into the center, pinched it into the middle, and now I'm going to take another piece. I'm going to fold and tuck over the sides, glue it down just a little bit to hold it into place. Nothing too crazy with that glue. And then now I'm going to take that, put that into the center of that loop bow that we made earlier. We pinched it right in the middle, and now we're going to just simply glue that and wrap that around into place. Tuck in that end where the back side of this bow is going to be and glue that down. This is the easiest way to make a perfect looking bow. Now to add on the tails, you're just going to take some extra ribbon, get it to the length that you want, add in your glue, add on your bow. Isn't that the easiest way to make a bow? There's a lot of times people struggle with patterns on ribbon. This is the quickest way to do it if you have a pattern on a ribbon, or you're just not in general really good at tying bows. And we all have our different skills. Don't ever feel bad if you can't figure out how to do it. It just takes practice, and just keep trying until you get it to the way you like it. And then in the end, all I'm going to do is add on this pretty poppy peach flower. The very last step is to simply add on a piece of rope on the back to be able to hang it up, and you've got yourself the most charming, beautiful bunny wreath for your front door. This DIY is a little more complicated, but it's really simple still at the same time. So we're going to use one of these wood rounds, some of these lavender flower pieces from the Dollar Tree, and some white burlap. I'm going to start by just popping out that twine, but after I popped it out, I realized I didn't really need to do that. I could have just left it in. I could have just popped out one side because we're going to add beads to it. But we're basically going to do a wood wash on this. I just took some brown and black paint with some water, went over it to make it a darker stained looking wood so you can see more of that grain and texture. It's still a little bit damp here, so you're still seeing it kind of darker, but as it goes on, it dries more. Now I'm going to put back on that twine, and this is why I was saying I didn't really need to take it off, but whenever I'm painting things, I always take things apart. It's just kind of a habit I have. So I'm going to go ahead and just pop on some wood beads, and I love the raw beads with the new stain. I feel like it adds some of that contrast to it, and it also gives it that farmhouse feel. So now I'm going to take that white burlap, and I'm going to just trace a line around it with the circle wood round being on here, and then I'm going to just cut that out real simple. It's not going to be the most perfect fit because we're going to need to trim it down in a second, but you can see that I'm putting on 2 layers. Burlap can be kind of see-through, so I always like to double it up when I'm crafting with it. It's just my own personal preference. You don't have to do that. You do what feels best for you. You don't even have to use burlap. You can use something else like a drop cloth that could be really pretty, or an old sheet that you have that you want to use and save even more money. Just cut that up too. I've used sheets in the past too on projects too. So now I'm going to just fold that over to kind of give it that gunny sack look. I love that look. It kind of has like a farmer's market look at this point. Now I'm going to trim off the edges so it keeps it nice and clean. Again, store-bought looking projects always have the back sides finished. So always keep that in mind when you're crafting. Then for my florals, I'm just going to cut them off of the stems. I never like using the stems. I like to cut them individually so that you can place them on their own and make them look more of a wildflower arrangement versus it being just clumped together. I just think that this looks more realistic. Now my daughter got these stamps for Christmas, and as soon as I saw them, I thought I'm going to totally use those on a DIY. I just liked the font. I felt like it had a very farmer's market font to it. So now I'm just stamping on with a ruler so I stay nice and straight. I saw this quote a couple of months back, and I thought, I must have flowers always, always. And I love that. I love flowers. If you don't know, I love gardening. I actually planted hundreds of bulbs in my yard. This falls so that the springtime over my home channel, you'll see them all coming up. I love gardening. I picked that up from my mom. Not only is my mom a crafter, but she's also a gardener. So you can see here, I'm just roughing it up, scrunching it, crinkling it so it's got that farmer's market vibe to it. And now I'm going to just distress it a little bit. You can skip this whole sign if it's not for you, but I really did love the extra texture it added to it and added some more personality. And I just, again, love the quote, I must have flowers, always, always. So once you've got that glued on into the place that you like, this is the finished look. You can hang it up in a mudroom, by the front door, on your front door, so many options and places to put it. We are going to be using 2 of these thicker painter sticks. I'm pretty sure they're the yard sticks. 2 of these boxes, a wooden stick craft dowel, some fabric, and a foam square. Start by gluing together those boxes with some hot glue, and then on the sides, you're going to go ahead and glue on those painter sticks. Now, like I said before, these were a yard stick. I cut them down so that they're 12 inches like the traditional painter sticks. I just used my miter box. I'm using these versus the normal painter sticks just because I like that they're thicker and they're a little more substantial. So you can use the other ones, but this is just kind of what I did. So once you've got that glued on, you can go ahead and take your craft dowel stick and you're going to just wedge that right between. You're going to see that it's just a little snug, but that's good because it's going to keep it in place long term. And I'm just going to add in a bead of glue, the hot glue in there, so it locks it all in so it doesn't shift or move over time. At this point, we've got our garden box built, and I'm going to come in with some white paint, but you can paint it whatever color you want. I always want to encourage my viewers here on this channel, make it for you and your home. Customize it. You can do this for any holiday or season. It's the cutest little garden box. At this point, I'm going to take some brown and black paint and I'm going to do some distressing to give it that farmhouse look that I love so much. And then I'm borrowing my daughter's stamps again. I did this for another project last week. I'm going to take these stamps and spell out the word spring on the drop cloth fabric. Once I've got those letters all stamped out, I'm actually going to come back on top of them and very lightly scratch the surface of the fabric with a Sharpie marker, just to make it a little bit darker, but I don't want to heavily color it in because I want it to still have that farmhouse look. So once I've got those all colored in how I want, lightly, I'm going to go ahead and take my scissors, snip those into strips, and then I'm going to come in with a dovetail on the end. For years and years, I would always call it an upside down V as a kid, and then one day I learned that it's actually called a dovetail cut. I'm now going to just take my fingers and I'm going to go in a circular type motion just to rough up the fabric, loosen those fibers some so it gives it that distressed look. And then at this point, I actually forgot to film this part, but I did rough up the fabric with a little bit of that distressing paint, the black and the brown. I forgot to show that. I'm so sorry about that. But I'm going to take some twine so we can hang up our little banner letters. I put a little bead of glue, went around it twice, and tied a knot. Then I'm going to come back in with those letter strips. I'm going to add some glue lightly on there, and I'm going to just pinch that right onto the twine. This project is so easy and so adorable. And again, you can customize this to whatever holiday or season you want. You could just end up having the banner say hello, and then you can switch out the stuff inside of the little crate boxes for all the different holidays. Could you imagine little pumpkins in here, little Christmas trees? It would be such a darling thing to make and have for all these different seasons. Now I felt like the top needed a little bow, so you're going to notice I added 2 little bows up there because Heidi loves a good bow. And then I'm going to keep these pieces of foam in here so that it's a support to stick whatever I want for different holidays and seasons inside. So at this point, I've put in some flowers, and then I'm going to come back in with some of this Spanish moss. Oh my word, it makes the biggest mess. I say it every time, but I just can't help myself. I love how it looks, especially for spring projects. I just feel like it makes it feel more like a garden. So just have a trash can close by, which is what I swished all that into, and then add in more florals and you're ready to display. I found this darling wood house in the craft section at the Dollar Tree. I have some of this long garland greenery and then this gingham ribbon also from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to take off that twine ribbon at the top, and then I'm going to take this garland and I'm going to twist it into a darling little wreath. It's really simple to do. You just twist a circle, tighten one end, and then take the other existing long piece, and I like to make sure that I wrap it twice because it makes the garland little wreath look a lot thicker. So I'm just twisting all that into place, adding some hot glue, and then I'm going to put that on the front of the house. This house could be decorated so many different ways for so many different holidays. I just think it's so cute, and I wanted to make sure I featured it here on my channel to go and find these houses, pick them up, and you can do so many neat things with them. Now I'm going to take some wire because I feel like this is, you know, a little bit higher quality than the twine, and I'm going to just cut out a piece that's long enough to be able to loop around. I like to always twist my wire like this because it just looks really farmhouse and cute. I don't know. It's just kind of the way I always do it. Once that's nice and snug on there, I just think this is going to look so cute hung up on a wall somewhere. I'm going to add on a gingham bow. And then at this point, we could stop here, or we can take it a little bit further like I like to do here with my crafts on my channel. I'm going to take one of these metal tag labelers, and I'm going to just create two little dots where I know where to take my crocodile to punch out some holes. I love my crocodile tool. I talk about it a lot here on my channel. If you're new, I have had this tool forever. It used to be, well, it still is. It's a scrapbook tool that you use to put on eyelets on scrapbook pages. But it goes through metal and cardboard and thick pieces of just pretty much anything, and it doesn't hurt your hand to use it. So I went ahead and punched out two holes, and now I've got my brad tray out, my little organizing kit that I use for scrapbooking. And I'm going to pop out two brads that I think will look cute and work well with this metal tag sign. And I'm going to just put those right through the holes and then fasten them into place by opening up the back side of them. And to make sure they don't come off or come loose, I'm going to just add on some hot glue to glue those into place. And then at the front side, I'm going to slip in a little piece of paper, and I've decided to write the word home. But it could be so cute because you could put your address, you could put your family's name, whatever you'd like. The Dollar Tree has tons of these right now, being that Valentine's Day is before spring, so you can find these for $1.25. I'm going to take this sign though, and I'm going to turn it into something even cuter. We are going to first take that sign and we're going to trace it onto some fabric. I always like to clean up the back sides of my projects because that's when it looks more store purchased versus it being that you made it from the Dollar Tree, if you know what I mean. So I'm just taking some of this really cute blue and white gingham fabric that I had on hand, and I'm going to cover up that sign that's talking about Valentine's Day because this is for spring. So go ahead and glue that on all around the sides, clean it up, and if you have anything hanging over, just come back in with your scissors and trim it up so it looks nice and polished. I always like to take the time to do these things because, again, they really make them look like they're store-bought and not a DIY fail. So now I'm going to just paint the back side of that sign since it was already raw, and then I'm going to come in with my heat gun and dry it real quick. Once that's all nice and dry, now we can start working on some distressing, which is really simple. I always just like to use a very little amount of paint with dry brushing, and then I just come in on the sides just to kind of make it look more farmhouse and spring. And now I'm going to take this white and orange gingham ribbon from the Dollar Tree. All of these supplies are from the Dollar Tree. And then I'm going to just do the first line. And you can see here I was trying to make sure I had my first line right. So make sure it's long enough and it's centered in the middle. And then you're going to pull it over and put a dot. Now you can see that I didn't go all the way across with a line of hot glue. We want it to feel kind of loopy and flowy, so you don't want to keep drawing lines of hot glue with it. I'm just going to simply put dots back and forth, back and forth. And as we're going down, you want to taper down the carrot ribbon so that it looks like a carrot. You don't want to keep it to be the same. If you feel more comfortable, you can even get a ruler and draw some pencil lines if you don't want to freehand this, and if you're a newer crafter, that's totally a good idea too. So you make sure you're staying on the line that you want to be following so it tapers down the way you want. Now with the magic of editing, I'm going to speed it up so you can see that as I'm going down, I'm tapering down the ribbon. And you want to stay close enough to each of those layers that you're putting so you don't see too much of the white behind at different angles. And that way you can see more of the orange. So just keep in mind, keep your layers close together. When you get to the bottom, snip off the extra, pull down that last little piece, and now we're going to work on the top of the carrot. This part is so fun because your carrot starts to come to life at this point. I'm going to use some of this grass from the Dollar Tree. I just popped off a couple of those little stems, and I'm cutting them down to size. Now this purple flower, I always have the hardest time working with it unless I'm making it into like a circle and a wreath, but it has the best greenery on it that looks like carrots. So if you see these long stemmed pink and purple, I think they're white too, at the Dollar Tree, grab them if you're working with carrots because it makes the greatest little foliage on top of the carrot. So go ahead and just glue about 3 of them on there. And then once you've got them all in place and you like how they look, it's nice and full, I'm going to come back in with some twine and just add a simple little bow. I feel like adding a bow always makes everything look so farmhouse, just cute. I really love adding bows. I've never met a bow that I did not like, so I add bows to a lot of my stuff here. And if a bow's not your thing, you can skip that too. Now I'm going to add on some beads to be able to hang it up. And isn't this just the sweetest, easiest craft? I enjoyed making this so much. It took me probably about 15 minutes to make it, but it is just so fun and therapeutic to get my hands on these kind of projects. Friends, if you're new here, I would love it if you subscribe so you don't miss upcoming videos. And if you're new, returning, whichever, do give this video a thumbs up. Now we are going to be moving on to this next craft. It is so easy. I love these boxwood wreaths from Hobby Lobby. And a lot of times people spend so much money on wreaths and you don't have to. Buy a wreath that's the size you want. And then when the seasons come around, buy florals that you can switch out on that wreath. So what we're going to do now is we are going to focus on a lavender flower and then a more magenta flower, and we are going to just simply bend the stems and sneak that right into the wreath form. This saves you so much money. Again, crafting does not have to be difficult. Sometimes it's just customizing things and making them feel like you, making them feel like your family and your home or the seasons that you're in. So you can see here that I just popped in those lavender pieces. Now I'm popping in those magenta roses. And then I'm going to come in and pop in these very dainty flowers that also have that magenta look to it with a little bit of a boxwood feel. So it worked out so perfect. All together, I love these colors for spring. I feel like they're just so beautiful. They're soft, but also at the same time, kind of vibrant because you've got that pop of that pink in there. Anyway, give it a try. Grab a wreath, put some flowers in it, and switch it out and save tons of money on this DIY. If you didn't know, I'm over on Instagram. Come on by and say hi and see what I'm up to over there. Our project is going to take 4 of these foam squares, a plaque sign. I had this one from a thrift store a while ago, but they have plaque signs at the Dollar Tree, and then 3 tubes of caulk. Start by taking your foam squares and you're going to cut the 3 of them directly in half so that they are about the same thickness. Once you've got those all stacked in half, we're going to start to build the wall for our tomb. Now don't forget, if you do have something that's thrifted, take off all the hangers from the back side. Now start by laying 3 of them together, and we're going to take a Sharpie marker and create the opening door of the tomb. I'm going to come up and then at a little bit of an angle and then make the other side being a little bit further over so it's a little bit thicker. Once you've got those lines in place, take your knife that you have on hand and go ahead and cut. Don't forget to remember which parts are you're actually using for your wall. It's really easy to start to get mixed up with the pieces that you're cutting. So keep track of what you're cutting and what you're using for your wall. Now I'm going to use some E6000 and some hot glue, and I'm going to start bringing those wall pieces together. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the top part, and you can see here at this point those doors that are opened. When I start to put on the top wall, now I can bring that door together and seal it. Now I almost forgot to bring some glue in on the side of this one, so make sure you add in your hot glue and your E6000, and don't forget, like I almost did. Once you've got your pieces together, I still have the door open. I'm going to draw my lines, and then I'm going to cut. And I'm also going to shave off the side so it has a little bit of a beveled edge versus it being really styrofoam looking. And I'm going to create some different rock bumps along the other side of the wall where the door is not going to be. So just take some pieces, play around with the foam that you want, and you can see here at this point I can now bring the two pieces together, and I'm stabilizing it with some dowel sticks. Now there is going to be a piece that's left over when you start cutting everything down. We're still with the 3 squares at this point. I'm going to go ahead and cut that into the circle for the door, and you can see again I'm kind of taking off stuff from the sides to give a beveled edge look, to make it look more rounded like a big stone door. Once you've got that cut, we're not going to attach it just yet, but you want to make sure you've got your positioning all right, because we are going to make sure that our tomb walls are secured nicely to our plaque. You don't have to do this, but friends, I really like to teach on my channel to take the time to go the extra mile by securing things with support stakes or dowels. So I just drilled 3 holes, put in some of these dowels that I cut down to size. I'm gluing them into place, and then I'm going to come in with some E6000, more hot glue, and then I'm going to put my stone wall on it at that point. This is going to make sure that if somebody were to pick it up by the actual tomb, it's not going to just come flying off of your stand that you have it on. It was kind of funny how satisfying this was as I was sliding it down and onto place. I don't have it here on the audio, but I actually kind of squealed a little bit because I was feeling pretty good about my project here at this point. I was like, oh man, it looks so good. It looks like the tomb. I'm so excited. So wiggle it into place, making sure it's nice and secure. And now we're going to add on the door. And the reason why we didn't put on the door right away was because we wanted to make sure it wasn't going to hang over to the side. That's why we did that measurement first. You want to make sure there's enough room for the door to fit on without coming and falling off, and the tomb to fit on. Now we're going to move on to caulk from the Dollar Tree. Oh my word, friends. This stuff has become my new favorite thing. I'm going to link a couple videos at the end of this video where I'm sharing all kinds of new techniques that I'm doing with caulk. I am having so much fun. I actually had someone leave me a not very nice comment and saying that I'm pronouncing it wrong, but caulk is the official way to actually say it. It's a French-based word, and in America we pronounce it without the L. I don't know how that happened, but it really is pronounced caulk. And if you look it up online, there's actually a lot of online video tutorials and things that you can listen to on how to pronounce it properly. So I'm just taking some water, I'm smoothing out the caulk, and now I'm going to go ahead and move on to the back of the tomb door. The reason why I did not add this in the beginning was I was actually planning on not putting anything behind it. But my husband, after I had let the whole thing dry and it was nice and prepared to be able to paint, my husband's like, you really should put something behind it so it looks darker in there, like a tomb. And so I heeded his wise counsel, and I'm really glad that I did. So I went ahead and cut with a 4th foam square piece, a thinner piece. It was about 1/4 of an inch, maybe a little bit more, like a 1/2 inch thickness. I added some more of the caulk. I added some more of the dowels to make sure it's on there nice and secure, and then I just popped that into place and then added more of the caulk to make sure it was all nice and bonded on it. Now, I've had a lot of people asking me questions if this stuff cracks. It has a silicone base compound to it, so no, it is not going to crack. It's not going to fall apart. I had a lot of questions in one of my last videos. This stuff dries really well. It has a little bit of a almost like a rubber feel to it, but it's not super rubbery. So think about caulk in your bathroom. Like, this is the stuff they put around your sink, and then as we add paint to it, it gets harder and more secure as you go. So you can see here that I used 1 tube on the front of the tomb, 1 tube of caulk on the back of the tomb. The 3rd tube, I'm coming in and filling all around the floor of it and anywhere else that I feel like it needed some touch-ups. Now I'm going to take my white paint. Once the caulk is completely dry, we're going to use white paint and cover the whole thing first. This is going to allow it to harden even more, and it's going to be a great base paint to be able to add a little bit more texture before we start doing the next step. So paint the whole thing white. I really recommend this step. Once it's completely dry, you can move on to the brown. You can see that I've added some white, some sand, and some brown paint. And then I come back with a little bit more white paint because we're going for almost like chocolate milk or rocky road. You don't want it to be too dark. You want it to look like chocolate ice cream almost. And then you can see here as I'm brushing it on, that sand is starting to come through. It's bringing in that texture, which is so exciting. Oh my word, I had so much fun making this project. I like, words can't even express how much fun I had. And I will say it definitely took me a day to make because there was a lot of different drying steps that I had to just kind of be patient and wait. But every time I would do something, I would just set it aside and let it dry and then work on something else or do a chore around the house or whatever I was working on that day. So now I'm coming in with a lighter paint, and you can see I'm coming in here and I'm being very, very chunky with it. I'm not painting everything perfectly. We still want to see that chocolate brown coming out because we don't want to lose that. So at this point, you can see the 2 different tones of the brown. And this is where the rock really starts to come alive. You want to see those different layers of color. That's what's going to make it look like a real legit tomb, and it's going to be so beautiful on a table or a shelf somewhere. So make sure everything is really dry. You can see that I made it really clumpy in some spots, and I wanted the paint to be a little bit clumpier, and I just dried it with a heat gun. If you have one on hand, great. If not, you can always just let it sit there and kind of dry. Now I'm coming in with what I would say is a light tan color. I added a tiny drop of black to my brown and my white as I was making it lighter, and I'm dry brushing that on. Now inside the tomb, at this point, we're going to do a really dark brown, like a slate brown, black color. Went inside and made the inside nice and dark. At this point, once everything is dry, you can start adding the rocks. Oh my word. It is so much fun at this point because now you're kind of building this super cool model of the tomb, and what a meaningful craft to do for Easter. Friends, I cannot express how grateful I am for our Savior and the things that He did for us so that we can return home to our Father and pay the price of the mistakes that we make and the sins that we try so hard not to commit, but we're just not perfect and we're going to fall short. I'm so grateful for the atonement. And making this project really just had my thoughts just weighing so heavily on the price that He paid for us. It was just such a sentimental project. Once I had all of my rocks on, now rocks are going to pop off with hot glue. I wanted to make sure they were really bound to the stone wall and the base. So I'm going to come in with some matte Mod Podge, and I'm going to just lightly kind of brush around the walls, but I'm going to really make sure I add some around those rocks to lock it in. Now we're going to get that Spanish moss. You can see here that the Mod Podge was still drying around the rocks, and that's okay. You let it take its time. Don't try to heat gun that thing. Just leave it alone. Let it just dry. Let it do its thing. And then just add moss in around where you feel like it would naturally want to go and grow between the rocks. Once you've got that moss all in there and the rocks placed where you want it to be placed, Go ahead and pick up this little greenery stem from the Dollar Tree. It has almost like a desert quality to it with these colors. And just cut things down to scale size and glue them onto your tomb. At this point, it's done and ready to be displayed for this Easter season. I picked up this bucket from my local thrift store. It was 50 cents, but I'm sure a bunch of you have these in your garage already. Take off any old existing stickers, clean it up, and then take it outside and give it some spray paint. I went with a beautiful tan color. Now I'm going to take a piece of foam square from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to glue that down inside and then take a second one and cut that in half and glue that down inside. I'm using E6000 and hot glue. I'm going to have a supply list down below if you need that. Everything will be listed out there, exactly what I used to make this topiary tree. Now I'm going to go ahead and make an impression into the foam square. Because this is a larger dowel, it's not going to poke in as easy. So I made an impression and now I'm coming in with a knife, but you could use a pair of scissors as well. And then put your dowel in there and glue that sucker in there like crazy. We're talking a ton of hot glue. Then on that other half, we're going to repeat the same thing so that fits on there nicely on the dowel on the other end. Take that foam square, shove it up into your wired cone that I got from the Dollar Tree and glue that thing into place so again, it doesn't move. We want this to be sturdy quality. We don't want it falling apart. The more glue you use, the better. Now we're going to take some of this ribbon from the Dollar Tree, but you can honestly use mesh netting. This is just what I had on hand. You could also use some burlap. That will take the price down. I wanted to use certain products on mine, so keep in mind when I say that this thing cost me about $20 to make, it actually can be made for much cheaper, and I'm going to give you some spots here and there where you can save on the price of making this. So go ahead and just wrap your whole cone with some type of a fabric that is tan based. Once you've got it all glued into place and the whole thing is completely covered, now we're going to go and move on to the eggs. Now I used 6 packs of eggs for my topiary, but if you choose to cut your eggs in half, you will only end up needing 3 packs, and that can save you some money on the cost of making this as well. I will tell you, doing the cutting in half is a very tedious job, which is the reason why I got lucky and just had a bunch of eggs. And so I'm using these eggs. You're going to see here that I went in through one of the openings where the hole is, and I'm just cutting around the seam. Each of these eggs have a seam on them, so I'm cutting along the seam until they snap in half. They are a thicker plastic, so like I said, it is a trickier job to try to cut all these in half, but it is doable if you want to cut down on the cost and only use 3 packs versus 6. Now I'm going to go ahead and take some of this Spanish moss. I used 2 packs because you want to make sure it's filled in nice and neat, and it makes that there's no gaps in between. And we're going to just nestle it right up to the eggs, in between all of them and all over where that fabric is still showing. Make sure as you're pulling off the Spanish moss that you are shaking out a little bit of that extra debris. And then when you've got it all in place, go ahead and take your scissors and give it a haircut. You want to make it so that the eggs are coming out higher than the grass. You don't want them to be too low down in there. You want to be able to see them, and then just give them trims around it, taking your time. This part's actually kind of fun to do. And then just tap it to make the grass that is loose that you cut to come out. Now you don't have to do this part, but again, I thought it was so beautiful to add this extra texture in here. And this is another place where you can save some money if you don't want to do the beaded garland going around it. So I just wired it up at the top, and then I'm going to come down and just keep wrapping it. And when I get all the way down to the base, I'm going to bring it around on the inside, twist it into place, and add some hot glue. Now again, you don't have to do what I'm doing. You could skip that part. And I actually ended up using 2 of them because I really enjoyed how it brought it to life with the second one. So that's another place to cut down on the cost of your project. Now we're going to add in a ton of hot glue again. We are going to slide on the top of our topiary, and then we are going to just twist it so we get the handle lined up with the front that we want. By the way, before you stick the dowel in, make sure your handle in your bucket is the right direction before you put the dowel in. Otherwise, you will be caught with the handle being on the seam side of the bucket versus the front side of the bucket, if you know what I mean. Now I'm going to take these rocks and I'm going to pour them down inside of the bucket. This is going to create some extra weight for the bucket since it's going to be out on the front porch. And then I'm going to come in with one more of these foam squares to add in some support. We want to make sure that this thing is nice and snug inside, and maybe even add a little bit more if you have some extra foam on hand. Really pack it in there because this is going to give it that finishing look where it's not wobbling all over the place. You can use other things too that you might have on hand that you want to shove down in here. It's totally up to you and what you want to use. Then we're going to go ahead and take some more of that Spanish moss, and we are going to just tuck that in and glue it all over to conceal that foam. Now again, here's another place where you can save some money. I totaled everything up that I personally used. This is a new ribbon that they're doing from the Dollar Tree, and it was $3 for the spool, and it's a really thick, wide ribbon, and I love, love, love the colors on it because it matches the eggs perfectly. You can get a ribbon from the Dollar Tree that's much more affordable. They have a beautiful mint burlap ribbon that is a great option as well. And then I just doubled up my 2 bows, one bigger, one smaller, and it's ready for your front porch to be displayed. Our supplies for this next DIY craft is going to be this windmill decor piece in the garden section, this frame, and we're going to start by opening it up, popping out the back. We're going to put the glass over to the side and keep the paper that is the artwork inside of the frame. Now we're going to get some scrapbook paper. This paper pad is from My Mind's Eye. It's from a couple seasons back, so you probably won't be able to find it, but they have lots of replications of this type of look at all kinds of different craft stores. I'm going to go with this really beautiful tone-on-tone paper, lay the old artwork on top of that paper, and then simply cut around it to get the same size. Now I'm going to use my tape gun. I'm going to come in and add quite a bit of adhesive because we're going to have something on the front that's kind of heavy. We want to make sure it's really glued down well. Rub it into place once you've got it on there straight, and then go ahead and take your windmill. This one is a little bit trickier, but thankfully I have some strong, good pliers. I went ahead and cut it apart and then just simply glued that on to my frame. Now at this point, it is so adorable. We can come in and customize whatever we want to say on the frame on the lower part. With my rub-ons from the Dollar Tree, I'm going to go with a fun, bold statement that says, "Family is my everything." I am so passionate about my kids and my husband and my family. I just feel like this is a really fun statement to put on here. So I'm going to go ahead and add on some greenery, a bow to really bring in that country charm look. And then here are my little dots. Family, ... is my everything. For this project, we're going to be using odds and end items from the Dollar Tree, a trash can, an oven cover, a plastic champagne flute glass, a little serving bowl, and then also this ring card holder. You can get this in their wedding section, and then a lid for a mason jar. We're going to bring all of these together to create a beautiful cloche wire decor piece. So I'm going to be using E6000 and hot glue on all of the things that I'm bringing together because that creates the greatest hold for long term and short term while the E6000 is drying. Once I have the bowl and the champagne cup on the bottom of that tray that you can use to cover up your oven burners, then we're going to go ahead and move on to the top. I'm going to put on that card placeholder onto the mason jar lid and then add that onto the trash can. Now we want to make sure it really locks in well, so I'm going to come inside the trash can and also add some more hot glue. Once everything was glued together, I simply took it outside and spray painted it a light gray, which made it so pretty. It is such a fun thing to be able to use for decor, and you can style it however you want for this upcoming spring and other holidays because it's such a neutral color. Up next, I'm going to be taking one of these bags from the Dollar Tree. You can get two for $1 or $1.25 now. I'm going to remove the handles. And there's a piece of paper that's in front of it, so pull that off first and then pop off the handles. Now you don't want to rip the actual bag, you're just removing the handles, because what we're going to do is we're going to turn this into the cutest bunny bag. Now you can see here, this is what it looks like on the inside, and I want you all to see that crafting doesn't always have to be so complicated. Even making a darling little gift bag like this is something so sweet and simple to do, and it's crafting. So if you're new to crafting, don't feel overwhelmed by getting tons of power tools. Start with something cute and simple, like taking a simple bag like this and just drawing a little bunny face on it, adding some cute little bunny ears. Oh, I just think these are so cute to hand out for this coming Easter and spring. So once you've got your face drawn on, you're then going to take those handles, and we're not going to put them back in the center how they originally were. We're going to only glue them to the back side of the bag, and we're going to off-center them so we can put two so it makes it look like ears. Once you've got those glued in there, take a piece of that scrap that you ripped off earlier, glue that back in there, and you could cover that up with a little bit cuter paper like scrapbook paper, but I'm just going to repurpose what was there just so you can see that you can seriously do this for pennies. Once you're all done, put some cute little gifts inside and some tissues and hand this out with a big wow factor. For this craft, we are going to be using one of these bunny Easter signs. We're going to be using one of these signs from the fall season, but honestly they sell these all year long with just different holidays on the front covers of these little box signs, some florals, and one of these tiles that you can pick up in their home improvement section in the Dollar Tree store. So we're going to take our bunny and we are going to cut the particle board with the little arms. We're going to cut those parts off so it's rounded, and then we're also going to take off the twine and the tag, and we're going to be covering this bunny with this textured tile. So how we're going to get that process done, we're going to lay the bunny on top of that tile. It's a little bumpy while you're tracing, so just take your time going over it, making sure you get your line nice and defined. I'm using a Sharpie marker because I'm eventually going to be painting this anyway. I'm also going to be cutting inside of the line versus directly on that black line, because you can see when you're tracing it, it has a little bit of a wider trace on it. It'll be hanging over a little too much. So cut inside the black line, and then when you go to pull off that plastic, you're going to realize that the adhesive sheet they had on the back is actually bound to the edges of the tile, so that whole piece is going to come off, and that's actually okay. I found that it worked out even better that way. So I made sure my hot glue was really hot, and then I went ahead and made a quick line all the way around the bunny so that the glue doesn't dry. Make sure your hot glue is really, really hot so that it can go all the distance without it cooling off. Then we're going to come back in and line up that tile on the bunny the best we can with the remainder of that piece that we have left over, and cut off the bottom rounded part, add some hot glue, and then combined it right where that joint is, and this is going to make it look pretty seamless. It gets pretty close. I love the texture of these tiles, and there's such a possibility with these, and they're only $1.25. So if you find them in your store, definitely pick them up. Now I'm going to cover mine with a nice crisp white, but you honestly could do whatever color you want for your bunny and your theme that you're doing for your Easter season, spring season. Now you can use a heat gun on it, but just be mindful that you're working with plastic still because of that tile, so keep it moving quick. And then on the back side of your bunny, make sure you tidy it up with some paint, or if you get a second tile, you can do the tiles on the back. That could be kind of pretty too, especially if you're putting this on a table for a display for a dinner, or just, I don't know, you want to be able to see both sides. You could do the tile on the back and add a little cotton bunny tail. That could be so cute too. So now we're going to add some texture and bring these tiles to life. I used a little bit of black paint with more brown, mixed it together, and now I'm dry brushing. You can see that I used a towel there, a paper towel, to get off the majority of the paint, because we only want to basically scrape across the surface of the raised tile texture so that we pick up that look. And now it has this vintage looking farmhouse tiles. I just think it turned out so pretty. Now we're going to take our bunny and we are going to glue it into our box. This box is going to allow our bunny to stand up anywhere we want to display it. And we're going to take some of these foam squares from the Dollar Tree. We're going to pop those in with some hot glue, and as well as some of this Spanish moss. This is going to conceal that foam and really clean it up and make it look like it's store-bought. Now pick the florals you want. I'm going to be using a lot of lavender, white, and a very soft pink throughout my whole spring season. So I am using these colors, but you can use whatever colors you want. You could go with a really pretty crisp white and pinks or yellows, and basically make a little garden for your bunny box. And the last is just simply take a twine bow or whatever bow you want to use and pop that right on your bunny. This adorable project has tulips that I picked up from Amazon, a foam square piece, and then a bucket from the Dollar Tree. Start by adding hot glue and a little bit of E6000 to the bottom of your square foam piece and pop that right inside your bucket. Now I'm going to use a plier to push in some holes because these tulips have wires in them, but they have this realistic green casing around it that doesn't let them go into the foam as easily. So I'm going to go ahead and allow those holes to help me get them in there nice and easy, and then I'm going to just glue them into place. Cut your tulips at all different heights and continue to fill them in until you have a beautiful full bucket of tulips. Once they are all in place, take some of the Spanish dried moss and pop that in around the bottom of the flowers in the bucket. For this next DIY, we're going to be using some of these books from the Dollar Tree. Friends, they sell these inspirational books for so much money. I hope that you have not purchased these when you can make them yourself. Start by picking up however many books you need for your inspirational word. Then with your craft knife, slit along where the book cover is and that first cover page. Now, depending on how rough you want it to be, sand off some of the extra, and then take some twine, wrap those books together, and tie it tight with a pretty bow on it, or a knot, whichever you prefer. Once you're all done getting your bow tied on there, at this point you can put whatever you want on these books. Your family name, a beautiful word to inspire. It's completely up to you. Or you can even leave them blank, and they are just so pretty to be able to put out in your decor, and it's the easiest DIY that costs almost pennies. You can also use old books that you were planning on donating. I always recommend using a book that you are not planning on reading anymore, because once it goes in here, it's not coming out. Then this is where it gets even easier. If you have a Cricut machine or a Silhouette, you can obviously cut out some vinyl letters, but the Dollar Tree has some rub-on transfers, and all you have to do is cut out the letters you want, take them with a popsicle stick, place them on the book, rub them on, and you have the most beautiful DIY for hardly any money. Friends, again, if I could convince you, don't ever buy these. These are so affordable, and I know so many people buy these for home decor. This project is going to be so farmhouse chic when we're done. I cannot wait for you to see the finished look. Take one of these $5 trays from the Dollar Plus section and some of these wooden spools from Hobby Lobby. Take some wood glue. I'm going to put 3 lines, and then I'm going to come back in with some hot glue, which is going to help lock it into place while that wood glue dries and gives it a secure bond to the tray. Then you're going to just pop that right on and do the same thing for each of the spools. This is creating a little lift leg on this tray. Paint the whole thing white, and when it's dry, take some washi tape that's a thinner washi tape and create 3 lines of washi tape on the opposite sides of the tray. Once you've got those on there and they're nice and smooth on, and you're going to want to make sure that you've got them all the way up to the corner, rub your finger across it, pressing down hard to make sure that it's bonding to the wood because you don't want it to lift up. You're going to go ahead and take some white paint and you're going to paint over that. That is going to create a seal so that you don't have any bleeding underneath your tape, because we're creating some pinstripe stripes on this tray that gives it that high-end chic farmhouse look. And you're going to make sure it's really dry now, so use your heat gun, go around it a couple times, and then come in with whatever you want for your color, and then come in with whatever color you want of paint with a smaller brush, going over those washi tape pieces to create your pinstripes. Once you've got them on there and they're really dry, go ahead and remove the washi tape and it'll reveal your pinstripes. Now, if by some crazy chance you accidentally went over your washi tape like I did right there, what a pro, right, Heidi? Come on. Just take some white paint and go back over it and touch it up. Now, once we have got those spots all touched up, we're going to get some light gray and dry brush your tray. Once you've gone over with that, I went over as well with a very light brown, and now I'm going to come in with a stencil that I picked up on Amazon. You're going to cut it down to size, tape it down with some painter's tape, and then using a stencil brush, you're going to tap, tap, tap. My arm actually started getting tired with this one because the stencil is so big. So you don't want to have too much paint on your paintbrush, and you just want to just keep tapping. You're going to see I'm going to go in my paint, tap down some, and then come back over and keep tapping until I've got a nice coverage. Then go ahead and pull off your stencil. Use the heat gun to make sure it's nice and dry because we're going to distress this some next. You could leave it looking really crisp, but we're going for that farmhouse chic look where it's a little bit beaten up, not too much. I like things just lightly distressed. So take some sandpaper, rub it around until you get the desired look that you want. Come back in with some more paint if you want to distress it more. It's up to you. And in the end, oh, this tray is so beautiful. This project is going to cost practically pennies to make. We're going to use 2 different size food cans, some florals from the Dollar Tree that are lavender, some gingham fabric, and a foam square. Once you've got all your items collected, take some white paint and paint the corrugated metal part of the cans, not the top or the bottom part. We want to see that metal coming through still. And then sand it down once it's dry. Now we're going to take our gingham fabric. We're going to cut a couple of slits into the fabric. And my favorite way to do it, because you get that roughed edge, I just like to do a little slit and then pull and rip all the way down. This works really well if you like the farmhouse look. At the bottom of our cans, we're going to take some twine and we're going to wrap it around about 4 or 5 times, glue it into place, tie your little knots, do whatever you want at the bottom to finish that look. Then at the top of the can, we're going to take that gingham fabric again, we're going to fold it in half, and we're going to, at the back side of the can, we're going to glue and come around the front, come around the back, and then we're going to just cut off whatever the extra is, tuck it underneath, and glue it into place so it has a nice finished look. I feel like these finished little details really is what makes projects look more high-end. Then in the end, put your foam inside with some glue and pop in your lavender flowers, and it has the cutest look. Now you can stop there, or you can add a little bit more twine, which is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to add a little bow because Heidi loves a good bow. And after this, it's ready to display in your home. We're going to start with using 2 of these larger wreath forms and 1 of these smaller wreath forms. You can see it's smaller because it fits inside these larger ones. And if you don't know, I just saw this pop up on their website. They are actually going to be selling these bunny wreath forms. If you can get your hands on them, awesome. They're $5. If not, we're going to make one for about the same price, maybe even $1 or $2 less. Because each one of these wreath forms are about $1.25, so let's just say $4 we're going to build this bunny. But if you can get your hands on the other one, awesome. So we're going to start with taking one of these larger wreath forms, and we are going to cut it with some of my wire cutters so that we can take it apart and create the ears. I love cutting apart things like this because it's amazing what you can make with just normal everyday items. So we're going to cut some of those branches from the wreath down to size. I ended up having about 6, we'll say 7 inches long is what I was working with, and then I cut it down as I needed it. Gather them together. You want to keep some long at the end, but make sure the top is all gathered at the same length. And then I'm going to use just some of these clips from the Dollar Tree to gather them together so I can glue that top part together. Right now we're forming one side of the bunny ear, and we're going to do this 4 times so that we can bring 2 of them together 2 times to create 2 ears. So you can see here that after I've got them all glued, hot glue's dried, and a good thing is that it dries clear. We're going to go ahead and now bring those tips together, gluing them nice and strong, and we're going to conceal the glue with a bead garland in a minute, and it'll look so pretty when it's done. So now once the tops are dry, I'm going to take a zip tie, and I decided to use the zip tie because I wanted to keep that shape of the bunny ear, and this is the best way to hold all of the wood together without it breaking. Once you've got it in place and the bunny ears are the same length, snip off all the extra, but you do want to keep a couple of these extra pieces long at the end so we can weave that into the wreath. This is going to make your bunny ears extra strong and sturdy. So you can see I've got these longer pieces and I'm just weaving them down in there, and then once you've got it in a nice snug position, go ahead and take some hot glue and go down into those cracks and crevices and add in that hot glue. This is going to make the bunny ears super strong and sturdy, and they're not going to come off. And you can see here that the glue is not super noticeable, but if you want to conceal it, which I did, I took some of this beaded garland, and I just think it adds such a pretty spring texture to it. I wrapped it all over my bunny and just making sure that I was concealing some of the hot glue. But again, from somebody on the street, if you're hanging this on the front door, no one's ever going to notice that hot glue. You can honestly put whatever you want on it to conceal it. Now we're going to bring the head onto the body form. I did 1 large zip tie first around the 2 wreaths, And now I'm taking 2 more and I'm weaving them through to make it stronger on the front. Then we're going to flip it over and then do 2 more on the back. So that way you have 5 zip ties all together. This is going to make it really strong. The bunny head's not going to come off or be all wiggly. So the tighter you get these zip ties, the better, and then just cut them off. Last, we're going to come in with some more of that bead garland to match the top. And now we can start decorating the neck of the bunny. I made this double loop bow. I'm gluing that on first, and then I'm going to come in with this gingham ribbon that I picked up. The gingham ribbon that's this minty green color. I picked that up from Michael's years ago, but you can use tons of ribbon that they have at the Dollar Tree. The mint burlap ribbon is from the Dollar Tree. So I used this gingham ribbon. Now I'm going around the 2 wreaths, tying a knot to secure it all into place, and then tying a traditional bow, cutting it off, and then just zhuzhing with it until I get it the way I want it to look. I love the look of a lot of layered bows, especially that's super trendy right now on wreaths, to add a lot of different layer bows, some that are longer and flowy in the wind, some that are sheer. Just keep playing with all your bows until you get it to the way you want. I'm using a lot of mint and soft bubblegum pink. And I also added a twine bow right in the middle. I just love that loopy look. On the back, to make your ribbons look flowier and not to make it too bulky on the front, I'm just doing a line of glue and adding on a couple more ribbons. These are going to hang down even longer than the wreath so they can blow in the wind. Now I'm going to come in with some florals. I'm using this poppy floral, and then I'm adding in some large green leaves, some of this lavender. We're going to go with a light and a dark lavender. And then what is spring without a couple of daisies? I love daisies on my projects, on my wreaths at the springtime. I just think that they're so beautiful. And then at the very end, once you've got all of your florals on there the way you want them, friends, this is the most whimsical wreath. And we made the whole thing right around $10, which is outrageously cheaper than what they sell these for in stores. We're going to start with using this bunny from the Dollar Plus section at the Dollar Tree, this plastic bowl from the Dollar Normal sections, and then a foam square with some greenery. My greenery came from Hobby Lobby. I'm using this pick with these leaves you see here, as well as a boxwood garland that I'm going to be cutting up, and I just cut up that all the time. I save tons of money doing it that way. Start by cutting down your foam square to fit around the bunny in this oval bowl. We are going to be gluing all of these foam pieces in there so that we can embellish around the bottom of the bunny. Now the bunny itself is totally cute and you can just put that on a table, but I want you to see that you can take a cute decor piece and make it even better by adding a little garden underneath it. So to conceal that foam, I'm going to cover it up with some Spanish moss. You can see that I poked some holes into that foam. The reason why I did that was because the boxwood pieces from the garland do not have wire in them, and it makes it easier to glue those down into the foam so they're all nice and secure. But the one with the leaf, that one has wire in it. So just, you know, when you're working with your florals, work with that accommodation so that you can make sure everything's glued in nice and secure and things aren't falling apart. Once you've got your little garden bunny bed, you're going to go ahead and take some of these eggs from the Dollar Tree, a shish kebab stick, and I just broke it down to size so it goes up into the egg, and then that way I can use this to stake into the foam. That's going to make sure these are in there nice and secure without them popping off, because honestly hot glue is not going to hold these eggs on very well. Now one thing I decided to go back and do was to paint the bowl white. I wish I had done this first, but sometimes I do things out of order as I'm working on things. I noticed that I think it would look better if I do this, and so I still just added it in after all. After that, you've got a finished adorable garden bunny bed. I saw a wreath online that had very similar things to these supplies. Some ribbon, a heart wreath form. This pick is from Walmart, as well as these other florals here. And then the greenery is a mixture of some stuff from Dollar Tree and Hobby Lobby. So we're going to start by taking our ribbon, and we're just basically going to create a base for everything to go into, because if you've ever worked with these wire forms before, they're kind of hard to make flowers glue on. It'll take forever to get things to stick. So the ribbon's going to give you something to jump off of. Now, my inspiration was a real wreath with real florals at a wedding reception, and I knew that we could make it with faux flowers and look just as beautiful and realistic. So we're going to add some greenery and some more greenery and some more greenery, and then we're going to come in with these beautiful soft pink florals. These flowers are from, again, Walmart. And we're going to just cut them down, tuck them in, and we're going for a very wispy, whimsical looking wreath like I saw in my inspiration. I want it to feel dainty. I want it to feel realistic. So make sure that you have lots of greenery to it, and add in some of those wild flowers that have little pops of white and yellow. It is the most beautiful, soft, and just lovely overall wreath to hang up on a door anywhere in your home. When you're all done, add some twine to the back to be able to hang it up. We are going to take this garden bowl, a dessert treat bowl from the kitchen section at the Dollar Tree, and then some of these half wood rounds that I picked up on Amazon. Take some E6000 and some hot glue and glue the little dessert cup bowl at the bottom of this garden bowl. Once those are glued in place, and by the way, I used hot glue and E6000 to make sure I'm locking it in for a really strong bond. Once that's glued in place, I'm going to come back in with some hot glue, and I'm going to go around the rims of the two bowls with these wood beads and some hot glue. Once you've got those all glued in place, this part is totally messy, but I will say it is a really fun project, and these bowls can be so expensive, and we're basically making it for under $5. And so what we're going to do is we're going to squeeze some of the caulk all over the bowl, and we're going to use some water and just keep spreading it all over the bowl. Once it's all smoothed out and you've got this beautiful texture to it where it looks like it's a concrete, we're going to go ahead and let it dry. This is so important to let it dry overnight because the caulk does need some time to just get hard, and it's going to make the bowl really strong. So at this point, it's all dry, and I'm going to take some white paint, go over the whole thing. I'm going to use my heat gun to speed up the process a little bit, but remember, the base of this is plastic, so you don't want to keep it in the same place for a long time. Keep it moving. Now we're going to come in with some different tints of gray. Light, dark. I'm even going to add in a brownish gray color, and we're going to just keep layering with dry brushing onto the bowl. At this point, you're going to start to panic and think, oh my word, I'm destroying this thing. What am I doing? But this is actually what you want it to look like, because in the end, we're going to come back in with a little bit of white paint. And as we start to slowly rub that white paint around, it's going to start to smear it, and it's going to have that marbled or concrete look to it. Once it's all dry, you are ready to use it as a catch-all bowl on a beautiful table. Up next, we're going to be using this bunny sign from the Dollar Tree, these eggs, and then as well as the gingham ribbon. I'm going to be using out of the eggs, the teal eggs, the white eggs, and the purple eggs, just so I kind of go with the color theme to match the ribbon. Once you've got those all out and unpackaged, go ahead and take your bunny, flip it over, and take off the carrots and the staples. Now I'm planning on using those carrots for another DIY on another day, so I'm just going to put them to the side and hold on to those. And then for the bunny, at the top of his ears, we're going to go ahead and take off that as well. On the back side of most of these, they have this little, almost like an aglet, like the end of a shoelace. You just pop it out and it comes off really easy without having to cut it, and that's something you can save too for crafting. So now is probably the trickiest part, but honestly, this is so easy. I'm going very slow with my drill because I don't want it to slip and hit my fingers, and I just take my time drilling a hole on one side of each of the eggs. The other side of the egg already has a hole. So now I'm going to take my ribbon at the end. I fold the ribbon in half, and I'm going to do a little slip knot. Right here you can see I just went around, pulled it through, and tightened it. And then on the other end, to be able to thread everything through quicker without struggling with the ribbon, I'm going to take a piece of wire. I'm going to glue the very tip of that ribbon to the wire. So this is going to now serve as a long needle to be able to thread the eggs through and the beads. Just make sure the wire is not too thick that things can't get through. So once you've got your ribbon nestled onto the wire, this is going to make it so much easier to thread everything on. I like using this trick a lot when I'm working with ribbon, just because it makes it so much faster. So you can see here that I slipped on the first bead, and I'm going to come all the way down to the end, and we're going to clean up this end where our little loop is. This is what you would use to hang up this garland we're making on the wall. So just go ahead and cut off that extra flap from tying that knot. I'm going to add some glue, and then I'm going to pull the bead down, and this is going to give it a store finished look. This is the kind of stuff that really makes a difference in your crafts. So what I did was I did a bead, an egg, a bead, a knot, then I did a space for about 3 fingers, and then I did another knot, came back on with another bead, then an egg, then a bead, then a knot, then a space, then a knot, then a bead, then an egg, then a bead, then a knot. And I repeated this all the way down. You'll see in the very end the finished pattern of what I did. But the fun thing about garlands is that you can do whatever you want with them and just have so much fun. And they make the cutest decorations in a home. So at this point you can see I'm trying to decide what to do between the bunny ears. And at first I put all these extra beads in this egg, and I kept sitting on it, and I just wasn't sure about it yet. I actually went and hung it up, and then I decided, no, I don't like the way that that looks. I really want the bunny's ears to be shown better than what it looked with this egg as distraction in between it. So I went ahead and cut the middle, pulled the egg off, undid these knots, and then I went ahead, pulled off the beads, and on the back side, I glued down those ribbons. And I liked this so much more because I felt like it really showed the bunny ears better. But you can see the pattern right here, what I was talking about earlier, and how I tied all these. And I just loved it because it shows the ribbon, the beads, and the eggs. And then the bunny has the spotlight right center in the middle of your garland. It'll look so cute on a shelf or on a wall, wherever you decide to hang it up. I use a lot of frames here on my channel where the glass ends up being put to the side, and today I'm going to show you how we can use that glass for a project. Start by taking a garden basket from the Dollar Tree, hijack one of the chains, and you're going to take 2 of the clips and put them on the opposite ends of that chain. These are going to be glass hang-up frames, and these frames are ridiculously expensive. I don't know why they're so expensive. Maybe because it's glass and the fragileness of making them. I have no idea. But we're going to take whatever greenery you want to put inside. For the purpose of the video, I'm going quickly and I didn't dry out my florals. So make sure you just dry out your florals by pressing them in between some napkins in a book for about a week or 2. Go ahead and put your florals or your leaves, whatever you're going to do in your frames. You're going to put those inside and then add on some E6000 around the sides. And you're going to see here that I put 2 little ribbons. I cut them down so they're little loops up at the top, and I glued those in with some hot glue. Wipe off any extra glue if it gets a little messy so that it's nice and clean and tidy. Now, I would highly recommend electrical tape, but for whatever reason, I could not find my electrical tape. So I'm going to use some duct tape, and it actually ended up having a really great bond and hold. So maybe electrical tape isn't as superior as duct tape. I don't know. I know I'm a big fan of duct tape. When you get towards the top, cut some little slats where the ribbons are, and cut and keep folding around that tape. Cut off those extra little pieces that are where the ribbon are, bring it around on the back side to fill in that gap, and then you can add in your chain. Now, I did take mine outside and I spray painted it black to get that farmhouse look, but can you believe this? These are just leftover glasses from frames, and it can turn into the most beautiful artwork. Definitely give this one a try. It was so fun to make. Now, if you don't want to add the chain, you can take some of the tumbling blocks from the Dollar Tree and create a base by lining up 3 by 3 on the bottom so that there's 6, and then you're going to come back in with 3 standing on their side so that it gives it a spot for the glass to slide into. You're going to do 3 on the front and 3 on the back. Altogether, you're going to have 12 of these tumbling blocks to create a darling little stand for your glass frame. I was online the other day. I love the site Antique Farmhouse, and I came across this beautiful artwork, but I did not want to pay $58 for it. So I headed to the Dollar Tree and picked up some supplies. We're going to make it today for just $7. Now we're going to be using caulk that you can find in the home improvement section, 3 tubes of it, as well as one of these wood art canvases that are $3 in their Dollar Plus section. We're going to start by creating the vessel or the vase first. Now, if you don't feel comfortable freehanding this, you can always sketch it on with a pencil, and I'm going to show you how I do that with all the florals and the stems in just a second. But first, I want you to see that yes, we are going to be getting our hands messy with this one, but I promise you it's so therapeutic and so much fun. Oh my word, this project is so much fun if you love anything along the lines of painting and getting your hands dirty. So we're going to go ahead and take a pencil and sketch out a rough draft of what we want our florals to look like, which directions they're heading. Make sure to fill up the space of the art canvas, but don't forget to leave some open areas like our inspiration. It wasn't too heavy in every single spot, so we want to try to replicate that. Now you can see that the tips of these caulking tubes are different sizes. One is a little bit thinner and one is a little bit thicker. This is because we want to treat them almost like frosting tips when you're frosting a cake. It's going to give you the different shapes that you need, thicknesses, to be able to create those smaller areas versus thicker areas. Now you can see here I'm coming in with that thinner tip and I'm creating all of the branches, and I have a glass of water next to me. Caulk can be very sticky, and after a while your hands will be totally messy. So keep some water on you and some wipies, and then just keep playing with it. You can see I'm patting it down to make it look more branch-like. Now I'm going to move on to the florals. The florals are whatever pattern you want to do, and you can use any kind of tools on this that you have, some scrapers, maybe toothpicks, but generally I'm just going to use my hand, my fingers. So you can see that I'm coming in first with the initial shape, and then I'm going to scrape out anything from the middle that is too thick because we want to be able to see the texture of those petals. Then I'm going to come back in and pat down the different areas, dragging the caulk into the middle to create the outer rim thicker and the inner part of the flower thinner. Play around with it. This is so much fun creating these flowers. There are so many different flowers out there you can create with this project. And then for the buds, I'm just simply making dots and then coming back in and smoothing them as well with some water. Now I'm at the point where I'm going to make salvia or lavender, whichever one you want to call this. They kind of have the same shape. I'm going to just basically put a dot and drag, put a dot and drag. And as I'm dragging, I'm making it get smaller and smaller towards the very tip of it. And the drags also get longer. So you want to make sure you're stretching it out as you're coming up towards the tip of that flower. This makes the coolest texture, and all we're doing are making dots and dragging the caulk. Isn't this just so crazy? When you see the light hit it in different directions, it looks like real flowers. Now I'm moving on to the leaves. This is the third tube of caulk. I ended up cutting this one at an angle for the tip. This is going to allow me to be able to create more of that leaf pattern. But again, using the straight, smaller hole of the tip works as well. Now, whenever I had a spot that went out too far I didn't like, I'm just going to use the back of my nail and scratch along the board and mimic the caulk wherever I want it to go. That's going to allow you to be able to clean it up and make it still look nice and beautiful the way you want it to. Now you're going to notice that on my vase or vessel, whatever you want to call it, I did not end up putting a rim on the pot yet, and that's because I wanted to make sure I allowed a flower to be in front of it so that it had that layered look, and then I'm going to come in on the sides and create that rim. Now make sure you don't make everything too thick in here. I didn't want it to be standing up so high, so I'm taking out some that is too thick in certain areas. I want to get the shape and the thickness right, so just play with this part until you get it to the way you personally like it to look, and then don't be afraid to edit, meaning take away caulk if it's too much. Now we're going to go ahead and create the center of our flowers, which is a simple dot, and I'm going to just again come back in with my water, manipulate it so that it's looking the right shape, size, texture. And once it has dried, friends, this is the most important, crucial thing. Make sure it is completely dry, because you're going to come back in with a large paintbrush and you're going to paint the whole thing white. You could honestly paint it whatever color you want. You could do black too and come back in with a dry brushing white technique. Oh, that could be so beautiful too. So once it's all completely dry and you've gone over it with the white paint or whatever color you choose, go ahead and make sure you use a heat gun. Keep it moving around, dry it the way you need it to so it's completely dry. And now we're going to come in with a dry brush technique. This part is so exciting because all of your work starts to rise and look just like our inspiration. I had a blast making this project. I have so many more things I'm going to be making on my channel using these techniques, but I hope you give this one a try. So this is what mine is looking like around this point. Now let's look at our inspiration. Again, remember this was $58 and we made ours for $7. For this DIY, we're going to be using foam core board, foam squares, and some florals of your liking. All of my supplies are from the Dollar Tree. Now we are going to start by sketching on the letter for our last name, our monogram, and then we're going to cut it out with an X-Acto knife. Once that's all cut out, you're going to take your foam squares and start cutting them down to fit around the shape of the S. They don't have to be perfectly spaced on that foam core piece, just as long as you have something for your florals to be able to go into. This has such a high-end look, and these monogram wreaths are so expensive. We're going to make this for just a few bucks. Then I'm going to take my greenery and I'm going to follow along the shape of the S, making sure I don't compromise that shape, so that way it looks like the letter. So continue to fill in all of your next floral that are small, and then after that, keep filling it in with all of your bigger florals until you have completely covered those foam pieces to make it look like the shape of the letter of your liking and your last name. Once you're all done with that, flip it over and add a piece of rope or twine to the back to be able to hang it up, and you're ready to display. For this project, we're going to be taking one of these old beach signs from the summertime. I'm going to be using the back side, some washi tape, some fabric, and some paint. Start by taking off the twine, lay the sign on your denim fabric, trace around the edge, cut out the fabric, and glue it on. This is going to clean up the backside and make it look store-bought. Then I'm going to take some filler putty and I'm going to fill in those holes. And now I'm going to take my thin washi tape and I'm going to press it down and make sure it's down really nice and firm. And I'm going to cut off those extra pieces so that we create a rectangle box around the frame, matching the widthness around all sides. Once you've got that in place, put on some black paint into the middle, tap it onto the washi tape. This is going to create a bond and a seal so that when you go to paint the whole thing black, the paint doesn't sneak underneath the tape. Once everything has been painted and is nice and dry, I always like to use my heat gun just to make sure. And then I'm going to remove the washi tape, revealing a really clean, beautiful frame on this sign. I saw this Home Sweet Home sign online and it was super expensive. Friends, oh my word, I know I say it all the time here on my channel, but you can make these things. It's just about taking the time and practicing. Now, if you have a Cricut, awesome. You can do this with a Cricut and paint it or vinyl it. It's up to you. Now, I just wanted to put a little positive message out there in the world. Home Sweet Home is a phrase a lot of us have on our wall decor, but I just wanted to say the reason why we have these signs that say Home Sweet Home. I firmly believe that our words are so powerful, and we need to remember to use sweet words with our loved ones that we live with. That is truly what makes a home feel like a home. It's not all the objects, it's not all the things. It's about how we treat each other within those walls. So remember to use Christ-like words and to love and lift those that you live with. In the end, you're going to just sand the sides, and at this point, you've got a beautiful sign for under $1.50. For this DIY, I'm going to be taking a trash can from the Dollar Tree and we are going to be manipulating it into a top hat for spring. So what you do is you take it at the middle, towards the bottom some, and you're just going to start pressing it in, squeezing it. This mesh wire bends really easily without having any issues, and you can see that I'm pinching the extra down inside the hat. Once I've got that pinched, I went ahead and squished it one more time, so I kind of have almost like a zigzag in the wire where it's pinched underneath and then it's brought in a little bit towards the bottom again where the top hat meets the rim. So I'm creating it to not be so tall. If I didn't do this where I pushed it in one more time, it would almost be too tall. So you can see that right there, there's some metal that's pinched to zigzag back and forth. Then at the top, I took a round piece of burlap. I cut that and glued that on and pressed it down. And now I'm taking another piece of burlap to go around the side of the top of the hat. And I'm just going to cut off any extra and then glue everything down in place. The trick to make this look high end is you want to make sure you have as clean a line as possible. And then for the brim of the hat, I've decided to take some of this pretty lace burlap ribbon from the Dollar Tree. And first I'm going to zigzag it back and forth because it's got a wire in it and that's going to make my job so much easier. And then I'm going to take the ribbon and put it on to the rim of the hat. And I'm coming underneath and adding the hot glue like this, because this is allowing it to be able to seep down in there and lock everything on. And then one more tip, I came back in with my hot glue and I went underneath each one of the pleats and added a little dot of hot glue to make sure the pleats don't lift up. Now you can still see the wire around that bottom part of the hat. I don't want to see that. So I'm going to take another piece of burlap ribbon. I'm using this teal color, which is really pretty. And then I'm going to come back in with this gingham ribbon. All of these ribbons are from the Dollar Tree except for obviously the tan burlap that I brought in from Joann's. And I wrapped it around a couple times, and I'm using that gingham ribbon to clean up the top of that teal ribbon, because I did have to kind of, you know, pleat it and fold it on there to be able to conceal all of that last of that wire. Now you could definitely leave the wire exposed, but I did not like the wire exposed. I wanted to cover it up. I thought this was so much prettier, and for $1 with all of these other little supplies here and there, it turned out so pretty. So now I'm coming in on the side and I'm just adding on some florals, and then I'm going to take some of my bead garland that you know I love so much, and I just coiled that around my finger and stuck that down in there. And then I'm going to add on a really big beautiful gingham bow over towards the back, and then the last finishing touches, because it's for Easter, springtime, I'm going to add in a couple carrots up at the top, and after that it's ready to be displayed somewhere in your home. For this DIY, it's honestly one of my all-time favorite projects ever. I'm going to take 2 of these wire hanging baskets that are in the garden section around springtime, but sometimes you can find these throughout the year. I'm going to take some wire cutters, use some really strong wire cutters on this part because it'll make it so much easier. Cut off that middle circle, and now we're going to take those pieces and straighten them out. Now as I'm straightening them out, you're going to see the circle frame pop. The wire is going to come apart right there. That's where the joint is on that bottom circle, but it's not a big deal because it's really easy to repair it and you don't even notice it in the end. So we're going to go ahead and straighten out all of those pieces so they're nice and straight as you can. It's okay if they're not perfectly straight. They're going to look so cute when we're all done. Now this is how I repaired it. It's really easy. Just put a little bit of hot glue, hold it till it dries and they stay in place. And then you're going to add some more hot glue, and then take some twine and you're going to wrap it around where that joint is. This is going to strengthen it so that it stays in place and it doesn't break on you again. I love this project so much. We are making this into a bird cage by joining these 2 baskets together. Now you're going to see here I made a whole bunch of little J's at the end of that long wired piece. We're going to bring them together with that other basket we have not cut the circle off of. We're going to take our wire cutters and pinch those wires down into place all the way around. You don't need hot glue on this part. The wires do a fantastic job holding it into place. These would be so beautiful on like an entry table, in the center of a dining room table, or even at a wedding. Oh, they'd be so pretty for springtime. And whatever other season you want to, you can use these in the fall and put like crows inside of them. I've done that before too. So now I'm taking a lid from a mason jar and I'm just using some E6000 and some hot glue because I just don't trust metal on metal with hot glue. I like E6000. It locks it in so much stronger. Now I'm going to take a ping pong ball. Yep, I said a ping pong ball. I wanted to get this larger round shape and stay on the Dollar Tree budget for y'all. I'm going to just cut out a circle on the bottom of it so it will lay flat. And I don't show it here, but I actually ended up adding a wood bead to the top to give it more of a finial look. You could actually add a finial from, let's say, Hobby Lobby, but I didn't do that. I wanted to stay on a Dollar Tree budget. Now to make them longer, you just add one more cage. It makes it really long. In the end, you have the most beautiful bird cage at different heights, depending on how tall you want to make it, and put that on top of a charger plate, and fill all kinds of goodies inside. It's such a beautiful look. I found this cheesecake pan at my local thrift store, and I wanted to make a trendy wall decor piece that has a farmhouse vibe to it for spring. So I'm going to pop out the bottom of that cake pan, put that to the side because that's a great piece to work with later for another project. I'm going to put a little glue to lock the cake pan rim in place, and then I'm going to take some of this rope from the Dollar Tree, tie it onto one side, bring it over to the other side, and figure out the length of how long I want it to be hanging off of a wall or a door. And then I'm going to just tie a knot on the other side, doing a double knot, and then I'm going to cut off the extra piece and glue it on the inside of the rim so it keeps it looking really clean and tidy. Now I always like to fray my rope ends whenever I cut them and I'm letting them dangle down a little bit. I just think it looks really pretty when you do that. So add your hot glue so that the rope doesn't slide on you, and then I'm also going to add a little bit of glue inside the knot so it doesn't come untied. Now add a piece of foam by sticking it on there with a rope so it's really stuck strongly on there, and add in whatever florals you would like for your home to match your decor. This would be so beautiful hung up in a bathroom. I think this turned out so great. I hope you give it a try. This DIY is super simple. You're going to take one of these plastic Easter baskets and some carrots from the Dollar Tree. I'm also going to be using some fabric in just a bit. You're going to see that, as well as some Dollar Tree rope. I took off the handle, measured about the height of the carrots from the bottom of the basket, and now with my scissors I'm just going to cut off the extra that we don't need. Once you've got that all cut off, you're going to take some burlap fabric and you're going to just glue it onto the bottom of the basket, pulling it as tightly as you can, wrapping it all the way around. And you can see here that I put the handle back on. It has these little teeth on it that allow it to just pop right back onto the basket. Now we're going to take those carrots and we're going to just wrap them all the way around the whole basket. My inspiration for this basket actually came from the Michaels store. They had this basket at their store, and when I saw it, I knew right away I had to dupe this one. It was super expensive at their store, and we're going to make this so affordable using Dollar Tree carrots, their basket, and some rope. Once I had the carrots all the way around, I went ahead and took one of their nautical brown ropes. I untwisted it because there's 3 on each rope that are twisted together, and then I wrapped it around the handle. And then I took another one of the ropes from the Dollar Tree that's not untwisted, and I just coiled that all around on the inside, gluing it all together to make sure it had a nice finished look. Once everything was all coiled and pushed down inside, I used my scissors and cut off the extra that I didn't need and continued to coil it until it was all the way completely finished and you could no longer see the yellow basket. This was the easiest project and the results turned out so stinking cute. What do you all think? Leave a comment down below to let me know if you like it. Next, we're going to be making a little nest frame. I've got some of this dried grass, a frame that I had on hand from a thrift store a while back, some of these Easter eggs, and some rope. Start by taking the frame and painting it white or whatever color you want, but I like white, so I'm going to paint it white. And now I'm going to take some scrapbook paper that has music notes on it and glue that down onto the frame. Now at this point, we are going to take some of the rope and we're going to start coiling it around in a circle to create a nest. Keep those nice and tight as you possibly can. Here's another nest I made around Christmas time where I did the exact same method but just added some grass at the top. Once you've coiled it around and around and around, decide how big you want the nest to be and then cut off the end and add in some of this dry grass. Once you've got your dry grass in the center, it's ready to add in a little baby egg. But first, what we're going to do to get rid of some of that glitter, because I don't really like the look of the glitter on there. It's not as cute, desirable as I'm going for. So I'm going to take the egg and I'm going to roll it in a robin's egg blue color. And I'm just going to make sure it's got a nice coat on it. Now, robin's eggs have little speckles of black paint on it, so once your blue is dry, this is one of my favorite techniques for getting texture on objects, the little speckles of paint. Take a toothbrush, flick the paint onto it, and you've got it all speckled on. Now you're going to take your frame, sand it up a little bit, pop in that backing, pop in that robin's blue egg, and you've got a beautiful spring decor piece. For this DIY, we are going to be using some of these glass jars. I picked them up at Target, but honestly, you can get these all over the place and lots of them at the Dollar Tree, and then some rope from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to use 2 white nautical ropes and then 1 brown rope. So what I'm doing is I'm noticing that these need to be a certain length at the bottom, and I'm going to make a big oval shape because we're going to be making a glass jar basket to hold all of these in. I'm just going to continue to coil them around until I get to the end of that rope, and then I'm going to add on that second rope. I wanted to make sure that it's wide enough and that junction of those 2 ropes is at the bottom, and then I'm going to start coming and building up the side. Now I'm showing all the steps of this because I just want you to see exactly how I built it up the side where you can make your basket really strong. My biggest recommendation is make sure that you're massaging those ropes together every single time you put another bead of glue along that line. And then once you get those all going and you notice that it's getting stronger and stronger, this is the coolest thing. I'm going to actually put some handles on here without having to compromise the rope being cut. You can see that I pulled it out a little bit longer, and then I continued on my journey around. So now I've created 2 handles, and then where I stopped, I'm going to bring back in that darker rope, and I'm going to go around 2 more times, and it makes the coolest basket to be able to hold these glass jars. Now they sell these so expensively on sites like Pottery Barn. Friends, I made this for $3. Please know that you can have the most beautiful things in your home for hardly any money. Once the basket was all done, I added in my jars and whatever florals I wanted. For this project, we're going to use one of these frames, 4 of these also frames. It's kind of like a clipboard, but I want to get to the initial shape, which is this cathedral window. We're going to go ahead and cut all that apart and pop off with a pair of pliers. If you pull it away from it, it comes off real easy, and then the clip on the front. And then also, I forgot to mention, we're going to be using some of these tumbling blocks, and that's just going to help strengthen everything on the inside. So go ahead and use a little screwdriver, take off that clip on the front. I always keep my hardware from these kinds of things because sometimes you can use them for other projects. So I just stick them in a Ziploc bag and then I just keep them in a drawer. Now I'm just going to measure out a piece of this wood contact paper, and I'm going to put that on here, but you're going to see I'm going to actually take that off. I feel like this project, it's kind of funny. You're seeing me in the process of how I think when I'm crafting and I'm trying something new. I am gluing on these little window frames, and I'm coming around all 4 sides, and they fit perfectly on this little wooden frame square box that I had from earlier. Now you're going to see me add in those tumbling blocks to support the sides of my little window frames. We don't want those to get weak, so I'm adding in those wood blocks to strengthen it. They also fit in there nice and perfect. Now at this point you can see that I decided to take back off that contact paper, and I'm still going to use it, but it's because I decided instead of painting with a brush, I was going to speed up the process. So I'm going to add some painter tape to the black border of that wood box, and I'm going to take it outside and spray paint the windows white. I also decided to spray paint the bottom inside of that box black. Once I had everything spray painted, now I'm coming back in with that contact paper and I'm smoothing it out. And you can see I did cut a little bit of a square corner in each one so that it fits in there nicely. Then last what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of this greenery that has wire in it and I'm going to twist it into a wreath, add it to the bottom, and you've got the most beautiful farmhouse candle holder. I hope you felt inspired by these 35 projects. I love spring and I love coming up with fun ideas using Dollar Tree supplies. Leave a comment down below to let me know which one was your favorite, which one you think you will try, and please remember to give this video a thumbs up. It really does help out my channel, and share it on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, wherever you feel inspired to share. Thanks so much for stopping by, and until the next episode, bye friends.